Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Nedarim, pages 5 through 11. Daf Hey. Shmuel Amar, Yadayim shen mochichot lo havin yadayim. Partial statement of vow is an insufficient statement and therefore not a binding vow. The Tanan, Gufo shall get. What is the text of a get? Harei at mutarat l'chol adam. Behold, you, my wife, are permitted to any man. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, however, Rabbi Yehuda says it has to be more detailed than that. V'dein di havi lichi minai, that this get which I give to you, sefer tachrichun, v'gard shvukun, is a separation document and a departure document. That you are totally removed from me. So in the viewpoint of Rabbi Yehuda, it's necessary to have the get be not just about her being permitted to others, but clearly specify that she is no longer attached to the husband. So in the view of Shmuel, like Rabbi Yehuda, a partial statement alone would be insufficient. Daf Vav, Amar Rava, Ad kan lo kami rabbanan delobinan yidayim mochichot elagabe get. So Rava says the sages only permitted an incomplete type of statement of recitation as being binding and valid with regard to a divorce document, because after all, a person doesn't divorce his neighbor's wife. You can only divorce your own wife. So the fact that it says you are permitted to others, but doesn't say you're removed from me, well, it didn't really need to, because we know who we're talking about here. You can only divorce your own wife, not somebody else's. Aval be'alma, but in other halachic contexts, you would have to have a clear statement of a vow or of whatever is being implemented, and an incomplete or a partial statement would be insufficient. Dav Zayin. Kol makom she'askar Hashem mitzuya, any place where the saying of the name of God, the uttering of the name of God is commonplace, aniyut mitzuya, poverty will follow, because we're not supposed to be throwing around God's name casually. Aniyut kemita, and poverty is like death. Shene'amar ki metu kol anashim mevakshim et nafshecha, as it says in the Torah regarding those who wanted to kill Moshe, that they had died, and that was referring to Datan and Aviram, that they had suffered a setback, but they were very much alive. So from here we see that being an ani, being a pauper, is the equivalent of being dead. Wherever the sages cast a jaundiced eye, o mita, either death would follow, o oni, or poverty would follow. Davchet, page 8. How do you know that it's appropriate, or at least lawful, to take a vow or an oath to fulfill a mitzvah? I have vowed and I have fulfilled your statutes of righteousness. But wait a second, why is it permitted to take a shavua regarding the fulfillment of a Torah commandment? Aren't we already commanded to do all the Torah's mitzvot from the days of Mount Sinai, from the revelation at Mount Sinai? Rather, we see from here that it is halachically acceptable to try to reinforce the Sinaitic covenant of the mitzvot with your own solemn statement of a shvuah. And it's not considered an oath in vain or anything objectionable of that sort. Rather, it is kosher to reinforce the Torah with your own vow. Daf Tet 9. Amar Shimon HaTzadik. V'yamei achalti asham nazir tamei ele echad. So Shimon HaTzadik said, I never ate the meat of a guilt offering brought by a nazir who became impure during the course of his nizirut, except for one time. One time, Pamachat, Ba'achad Nazim Nedarim, there was a fellow from the southlands of Israel who came to the Beit HaMikdash, and I saw that he was good looking. He had nice hair and curls. So this was a very nice looking man. And Shimon HaTzadik questioned why it is that he would want to cut off all of his hair, which is a requirement of the Asham of a Nazir. And the man told him a story that he knew he was a very attractive man. And one time he saw his visage in the water, which functioned as a mirror. He saw his own facial image, and he became very haughty. And he thought to himself, no, he shouldn't be haughty. He should do everything for the sake of heaven and have humility. So what did he do? Agalach l'shamayim. He said, "I'll become a nazir, and I'll end up having to shave off my hair from my head for the sake of heaven." That impressed Shimon HaTzadik. Amarati neshakti v'rosho, so I kissed him on his forehead, and I said, Amarati b'ni kamocha yubi nazim Israel. May there be more Nazirim like you in Israel who do this for the right reasons, for the sake of heaven. Daf Yud. Chasidim Rishonim, the early pietists, they wanted to bring a sin offering, but they couldn't because they didn't do anything wrong. And you can't bring a sin offering unless you are required to. It's not a discretionary act. God never allowed them to transgress even inadvertently, so the opportunity didn't present itself. So what do? They really want to bring a chatas, but they can't figure out a way to do it. There's a way to do it. They went ahead and made a vow of nazirut, of asceticism, knowing that at the end of the term of nazirut, they're going to have to bring a chatas. And lo and behold, what was unavailable to them suddenly becomes permitted and required, and they can bring all their different types of korbanot. Yud Aleph, 11. So, one of the basic rules of Nedarim and rules of statements and the binding character of statements is that if you make a stipulation, a conditional statement, in order for it to be binding, it has to be like the stipulations of Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven. That when Moshe made an arrangement with the 2.5 tribes that they would have a portion of land on the east bank of the Jordan River, in Transjordan, as opposed to on the west side of the Jordan River in Eretz Yisrael proper. The deal was they had to fight in the vanguard as chalutzim for the army of Israel. And if they did, they would get their portion in the Transjordan. And if they did not, they would not get their portion in the Transjordan. Both sides of the coin, both scenarios equally being possible, were fully explicated. If you make a conditional statement without fully explicating both sides of the coin, both scenarios, then the stipulation is null and void. Everyone have a great week.